Hello, Fandersons of the virtual kind. My name is Andrew Dobbins, and this is walkthrough number 13 of my virtual reality project featuring the sets from Space 1999. As with my last update, this one doesn't really have a lot of new content, but what it does have is an entirely new backend. I've updated this project from Unity 2019 to Unity 2023, and along with that have come a lot of underlying changes. So the locomotion system has changed, the menu system has changed, the interactivity has changed, and it really follows a lot of the industry standards now, whereas my previous version did not do that so much. So looking around, everything looks pretty similar to last time. But the first change that you will see is in the virtual hands. Previously, I had the controllers that would appear, but now we have these virtual hands, which are somewhat transparent, so they don't get in the way too much. What I haven't managed to get around to do yet is to animate these hands, so when you grip or pinch or point or whatever, they just stay static like this. But that's I'm happy with that for now. So the other thing, like I was saying, that has changed is the menu system and the interactivity with the menu. So now what I've done is I've mapped the top button on your left controller to the menu. So if I press that now, you can see the menu is the clipboard that we see in the TV show. And so we press the top button again and the clipboard goes away, and press it again and it comes back. Now, and that only works with the top button on your left controller. Your right controller, if you press the top button, nothing really happens at this stage. I had hoped to put or map the jump ability to the top button on my right controller, but as it turns out, I've got so many other interactions happening with the hands and the buttons and so on. I think there's some conflict going on because I just cannot make the jump work. And that's not a real big deal at the moment because we still have other ways of launching ourselves into the sky. So I'll cover that as part of just this brief talk about the locomotion system. So to move forward, on the left hand, if you push forward on the thumbstick, you move forward. If you pull back on the thumbstick, you move back. Left on the thumbstick, left. Right on the thumbstick, right. So that's on the left thumbstick. On the right thumbstick, if you push left on the thumbstick, you turn, and then push right on the thumbstick, you turn in the opposite direction. So with the combination of pushing forward on the left thumbstick and then the left or right on the right thumbstick, we can move and orientate ourselves and move up and down stairs and do all sorts of things and look outside the window and then just come back down and so on. Now, when I went down those stairs, it did look like I sort of floated down, if you noticed. Now that's because in this environment, the default gravity is set to moon gravity, which is 1.6 meters per second. And when you step off the platform there, you have enough sideways velocity that you don't end up contacting the first step. You end up just falling down and hitting somewhere halfway down. If we set it to Earth gravity, I think you'd sort of step down the steps much more literally. So we've got this free movement now: forwards, backwards, left, right, and then spin with the left hand. I still do have the teleport mechanism working. So on the right hand, if we push forward on the joystick, on the thumbstick, we have this teleport beam and then the landing position appearing. And then when I let go of the thumbstick, I instantly go to where I teleported. And so with this teleport approach, you can teleport up onto platforms and then teleport back down to the floor and teleport onto certain furniture items. Now, with this new version of Unity, I am being a little bit more sophisticated with the collision meshes. So I've set up certain collision meshes that you can teleport onto, like that. You would have noticed that the teleporter turns yellow when you're trying to teleport onto a surface that is not appropriate for teleporting. So in other words, a vertical surface, it won't teleport to that. But like I was saying, you can see here I can teleport onto the table, but I can't teleport onto the chair. And I've done that on purpose with certain items. So for instance, that thing there or that thing there. It turns out that if I make everything a collider for the teleport system, or in fact for the character controller, your character gets stuck on things very easily. So I've sort of pared down what the character controller will bump into. So obviously the character will bump into walls, and as I go up the stairs, the character bumps into each step and goes up or down. And then here, when I try to go forward through this desk, it just stops at the desk. But if I go through the chair, it goes right through the chair. And it just turns out that if I make everything a collider, like I said, you end up just bumping into things, and it's just a constant pain in the butt trying to get around things and so on. So I have selectively made certain colliders interact with teleporter and interact with the character, and other colliders to not interact with the character or to not interact with the teleporter, but they will interact with other objects that like interactive objects that will fall on them. So for instance, if I come up to the mezzanine level, here we have some objects that we can pick up. Now, you notice I've picked this up in a very handy way. If I put this back down and I get close, I can pick it up literally with the hand and then swap it to the other hand and then back again to this hand. And if I drop it down, it drops. But we also now, this is one of the new additions in the new Unity, I can pick things up from a distance. So you notice that there's this blue laser coming out from my hand, and then you just press the grip button and you now have the object. Additionally, to being able to pick up object with this laser pointer, you can pull back on the joystick once you've grabbed the object and the object comes close to you, or push forward on the joystick and the object moves away from you. So that's really cool. And then if I push left on the joystick, the object rotates one way, and if I push right on the joystick, the object rotates the other way. So this is, I'm really pleased with how this works. So if I try to let go of this, now I'm using the Valve Index controllers right now, and they use capacitive grip. And the capacitive grip sometimes doesn't know that I've let go of the capacitive grip section on the controller, and it continues to hold on. So here, I'm just trying to let go, and it's just not letting go. But on the left hand, it doesn't let go either. So yeah, the capacitive grip on these controllers is just not the best. Anyway, I was going to show you how I can teleport onto that table, and I can also drop objects onto the table and they hit it, and I can drop objects onto coffee cups and they hit it. And I can also drop objects onto, come on, maybe I might just use my hand. I can drop objects onto the chair and it works. But my character, as I said, will not collide with the chair, and I can walk straight through it. And in fact, I can even walk straight through these interactive objects. But the interactive objects will collide with, let me just try going up that stair again. The interactive objects will collide with other interactive objects, as you see there. So, so we've covered walking, teleporting, grabbing. There is one more mechanism for moving through the world, and it's very handy for inspecting certain elements of the project. So for instance, if I come over here and I think, oh, there's something interesting up there, I want to have a look at that. I have the world grabbing mechanism, which I had in the previous project as well. And so the way that the world grabbing works is you press the bottom button on either controller, press and hold, and then just pull your hand up, and you are raised up into the air. Now I've let go of the button, and now I'm just sort of floating in midair, able to look at the details of whatever I want to look at. Now, to get back down to the ground, there are two ways. One way would be to teleport back down to the ground, and here I am back down on the ground. And so let me just use the left bottom button to lift myself up into the sky. So here's the left bottom button, and here I am back up in the sky, and I let go of the buttons, and I'm just floating in mid-space. So the other way to make myself fall back down to the ground, instead of using the teleport, I can just attempt to do the slide motion. So just push forward on my left controller, and I now naturally am affected by gravity once more, and I fall down and hit the floor. So just to show you that again, we go up in the sky and I press either forward, backwards, left, right, whatever, and I then become affected by gravity once more. So we've got those three methods of locomotion: smooth motion, teleport, and then world grabbing. So that is that. And so the next thing really that I need to show you is the menu system. And you've already seen glimpses of it. So the menu is broken up into certain categories. The first category would be this red X up here. You click on that and you can quit the whole application, yes or no. So obviously I don't want to click the exit the application now, so I'll go no. So that's your exit button. But then we have these four blue tab buttons, which I call them. The first one is all the options that relate to this scene. So for instance, we can change the color of the panels to green, to orange, to peach, red, and then back to white if we want. We have the globe textures for the globe in Commander Koenig's office. So if we just come over here, we can change it to moon and then change it back to Earth. Now let me just close the menu and point out that I have made a small change to the globe. I noticed in the TV show, at some very strange angles, you get to see that it actually does have a polar ice cap as a white blob. And in fact, that polar ice cap I took from actual satellite images from, I think, maybe 2018, 2019, something like that. And I think that was like in the summertime or in the spring or autumn time. I can't remember. So there's a polar ice cap on the top, and then there's the Antarctic ice cap as well. So that is a change that I did to the texture for the Earth globe. So we have the Earth globe, and then we have the Eagle passenger modules. So at the moment it's set to the rescue module. So if we look out the window, you can see there's the rescue module, and I can change that to VIP, and I can even turn it off, as you can see there. And then if I come over back up to the mezzanine level, if I change the Eagle to the passenger module, there's the standard passenger module, but you'll notice that I don't have any of the landing pads. Well, in fact, they are there. They're retracted into those pods. And so I've never actually seen those landing legs retracted into the pods on the TV show, but clearly that's what they were designed to do. And so I thought it'd be worthwhile to just showing what it looks like. I think it looks pretty cool. So that's the menu options for the passenger modules. Before I go on to these last two, since we're looking at the planets outside the window, I might as well just explain what I've done there as well. So in the previous version of this project, I had taken screenshots of the planets in the TV show and simply mapped them onto a disk and put that disk out far enough so that it looks like, it's kind of a planet, and it was really flat, but it was meant to look round. What I've done this time around is I've taken that texture, which is really only one half of the planet. It's only a disk, but I've got some software which I do a lot of work with panoramas, 360-degree panoramas, and the texture format for panoramas is this thing called equirectangular or latitude longitude format. So I took the circular texture of the planet from the TV show. I unwrapped it using some panorama software. So I unwrapped it from the flat texture thing to equirectangular format. And unwrapping just one half of a planet, you don't get a complete equirectangular texture. You just get half the planet there. But what I was able to then do is use the latest version of Photoshop, which has got this artificial intelligence generative fill feature, and I asked it to generate the rest of the texture that would map to the backside of the planet. And so Photoshop, I took a few shots at it and eventually got something that I liked. And then I still needed to do some massage to the polar, the north and south poles, to make all that sort of work seamlessly. But after a bit of mucking around with that, I got a texture that I could now wrap around a spherical planet. And so at certain times on those planets, or in fact, I've got, I think, 5 or 6 planets. At certain times, you will see the exact texture that we see in the TV show, but then as the planet, and if you look long enough at those planets, they are rotating. Probably unrealistically, but I had to make them rotate fast enough for a human being to notice them rotating. But anyway, so at certain times, you'll see the exact texture that you see in the TV show, but then it'll just naturally rotate out of view and you'll see what was on the back of the planet. And I quite like how that turned out, actually. So that's the planets. Now back to the changes that I did to the menu. So here in the options for this environment, we have our screenshots, which you may remember from the previous versions of this project. And so these are, you can put your eye exactly behind the photo, and the perspective should match exactly the perspective of the 3D environment, as you probably already know. So that's the screenshots. We can turn that off. But I've also now added a slideshow, and the slideshow features behind-the-scenes photos in the making of the TV show. So photographs, artwork, that sort of stuff. So there's about 100 slides, and I've got them displayed up on the big screen there. And I think it's like a 5 seconds per slide sort of deal. And we'll just see the next one. So that's some artwork. And basically on this back screen, I've got exactly the same lot of 100 slides. But on that screen, it starts off at slide 1. And this one, it starts off at slide 50. And then they just cycle through all 100 slides. So they're sort of out of phase by 50%. So you get to see kind of different things on each screen, but they will eventually cycle to be the same images. So that's a really nice little feature that's been added, slideshow. And then down here at the bottom we have ambient music. So in the previous version we had ambient music, and so likewise I have that here as well now. So we can just click on the people theme from Space 1999, and these are toggle buttons. So if I click on, let's say, theme 2, the first one is deactivated, and then that one's activated. But if you click on the currently running musical track, it then turns it off altogether. So you do have the option of having them all off if that's what you want to do. Whereas with the Eagle passenger pod, you can't have, well, actually you can, none is all of them off. Well, I guess this is an example here, the globe texture. You can't have both off at the same time. No matter what you do, you will always have just one on. And likewise with the colored panels, you can't turn them all off. One has to always be on. Whereas with the music, they can all be off if that's what you want. So this is the options panel in the menu. And let's have a look at the props section. So with the props, we have these. I have 2 types of props now. You can see there's this category called library, and I'll show you that in a second. But this first option here, respawn, this refers to the few cases where I have placed some props in the environment that you can interact with. So these things, you can interact with them, but I just don't like the way that they don't cast proper shadows. As you can see, there's no shadow. There's no darkness that happens near the floor or near anything. So for that reason, most of the props in this scene are static, and the lighting is pre-calculated. So these cups are static, and there's subtle shadows underneath them, and I mean, that's probably not a great example, but you know, there are other objects that have subtle shadows underneath them. So if we look down here, you know, there's darkening underneath the light there, and you know, there's darkening behind this little latch. Whereas the dynamic objects, they don't have baked-in lighting, which doesn't look that great. But so I do have a sprinkling of these interactive objects within the scenes, and those ones can be respawned. So if I press the respawn button, they come back. So and this is probably mostly useful if you accidentally throw something outside and then it just falls away forever. So what I would do in that case is I just go respawn and everything comes back. Now, for the keen-eyed amongst you, you will have noticed that I had a respawn button in my previous version, but one of the bugs that the previous version had is if an object was, let's say, thrown out and it had some sort of velocity, so in that case, well, that one was falling downwards, the object would be respawned, but it would retain the old velocity. And so if I respawn, that yellow object would have a velocity towards the ground, and it would just sort of mess up the whole setting up of those three containers. So now the velocity is also zeroed out. So the position, the rotation, and the velocity are all zeroed out when you press respawn. Obviously, we have different values of gravity. So, and again, I've mentioned this before, but if I drop this at Earth gravity, you can see it falling at Earth gravity. And if I drop something at moon gravity, it falls at moon gravity. And then if I drop something at Jupiter gravity, it falls very fast and respawn. So these props, and there are other props in other scenes which I have pre-loaded, and those props can be respawned and they'll be reset. But there's a whole different category of props over here in the library. And so to show you those, I think I'll just come back down here where there's a little bit more room. And let's click on library. Look at that, a whole array of objects that we can spawn right in front of us. So the idea is wherever you're looking, just in front of you and just a little bit above, that object will appear. So let's spawn in the Earth globe. There it is. Now this Earth globe has a certain bounce to it and so on, whereas a lot of the other objects don't necessarily bounce. So if I bring in the eagle, the rescue eagle, it just falls and plops onto the ground. Whereas this thing, I've given it bounciness. Now you'll also notice that if we listen carefully, there's impact sounds. So if I drop this, if I can let go of it, that wasn't very clear. Yeah, you heard that sort of thud. So objects make a sound when they contact other things, and I can pick that up from a distance. I can bring it closer to me using the right joystick, and then I can just interact with it and do stuff with it. So the way, just going back to this spawning business, so you can get rid of your objects just by clicking the button again. In fact, let's just get rid of the Earth globe and let's bring it back, and it appears right in front of us. And then we can bring back a moon and a planet. And you notice because they sort of almost appeared on top of each other. So what I normally do is I'll spawn something and then I'll just turn my head a little bit more away from the others, and then again turn my head away from the others, and then they just spawn and fall down in a clear space. And so these are just the planets, as you've already guessed. I'm just wiping my controllers down, thinking that maybe I'll be able to let go of objects a little bit more easily. It's not the sort of bug you want to have in the middle of a walkthrough. Anyway, so we can spawn objects and then deactivate them as we please. I have included the diorama models. So this, you've seen this previously in the diorama scene. So now you can spawn this anywhere you like. And you can see that the lights are all flashing. The animations are all happening just like they did before. So there's the main mission, there's the corridor set, as you can see there, there's the passenger module, and then there's the Eagle cockpit module. Turn those off. You've already seen the Rescue Eagle. Now the moon buggy, let's bring that one in. Look at that. And in fact, let's turn gravity off. And so now we have the moon buggy floating around inside main mission. Strangely enough, gravity has been turned off, but if we turn gravity back on, it then falls down and makes a sound as it impacts the floor. And so this is the true scale of the moon buggy in the true scale of the main mission set. I think that's pretty cool. So we've got the comm block, we've got the stun gun, we've got the various other objects. Now the hit point for these is a little bit small, mainly because I've packed in so many objects here. But we've got the medical scanners, the radiation scanner, those sorts of things. We've got clipboards, which is what we're holding in our hand already. We've got hamper packs, the barrels, the bowls, which we already have up there, but for completeness, we've got all the bowls here as well. We've got the different cases that we see in the travel tube and various other places. So that's the Ampex cases. We've got the clamshell cases, which look like that. Well, I call it a clamshell case. Somebody told me that it's actually a floaty for helping people swim. So it's made of styrofoam or something, and you just hold onto it and it helps you swim or something. I don't know. The Scotch cases. Wow, my controllers aren't gripping at all now. But it does work. They do. Your controllers will work, I guarantee it. So that's the Scotch cases. This one I call the wing case. I have no idea what this one's called. But we have various eskies, kind of boring. And then we have the iconic containers. The other thing you can do now in this version of Unity is I can hit other dynamic objects with each other and bounce them around. You couldn't do that with the original version of my project that I had. And that was my fault. I just had the wrong settings in that version. So let's just go back to the props category. So we've got respawn, we've got the library, we know about gravity. And then the next tab would be the locations. So we have 6 locations to go to. Currently we're in the main mission and there's a red border around the one that we are currently in. And then we simply click on these to go to the next scene that you want to go to. There is one little thing that I'd like to point out. In this world now, the way that the VR virtual reality character is being treated is it has attached to it something called a character controller, which is basically a pill-shaped collider. So when I go to and bump into a wall, it just stops. I can't go any further. But in my real environment, in my real room that I'm standing in right now, I can actually take a few steps forward and move outside of the region, move outside of the interior of the set. So now that I'm outside, I'm kind of floating. But as soon as I push forward on my joystick, it's the same deal as earlier on when I explained when you're floating up in the sky. As soon as you push forward on your joystick, gravity will take hold and pull you down. So that's what I've done. And now, look, I'm falling and I'm falling and I'm falling to oblivion. I'm falling through the floor and I'm falling off to infinity. What you can do is go to your locations and then just click on the main mission set again, and that will respawn you back where you started. So let's turn off the music. Let's go back to our locations, and then let's have a look at the credits. So the credits page is really just information. There's nothing to do here. Brief description about what this set is all about, and then just information about myself and the process that, the steps that were taken to make this whole environment. So that's the credits page. But before we go to the next scene, let me just think if there's anything else that I've done differently. So, oh yes, over here, how can I forget? I've got to tell you about the clocks. Okay, so this glass shelf here, I've got this Easter egg from 2001. It's the Tycho magnetic anomaly, or the monolith. Now, previously, when we approached that in this scene, you would hear the classical music from the movie 2001. Thus Spake Zarathustra. I changed that music. In the movie, when the human astronauts touched the monolith for the first time on the moon, or when the monkeys were touching the monolith 2 million years prior, you heard this sort of discordant chanting. And I thought it'd be nice to have that as you approach the monolith. It's sort of a disconcerting kind of music, but I thought it fit better than what I had. So as I approach that now, you'll hear the music. Touching the monolith like the monkeys did 2 million years ago. So I've changed the music there. Now, the other thing that I changed is these clocks. Here I am. I'm recording this on a Saturday night at 9:05 p.m. I'm in Australia, and so what these clocks do is they show you your current time, which I'm really pleased with. And then this digital clock here on the right, that shows us the Greenwich Mean Time, or UTC time. So wherever you are in the world, these two clocks will show you your current time, and this will always show the Greenwich time. Now, what I'm particularly proud about these clocks is that this was my first effort to get ChatGPT or Google's Gemini, which is the large language model artificial intelligence thing, and I got it to help me write the code necessary to make the clocks work, and describe how I would set that up in my Unity project. Because as I've mentioned in the past, I'm a 3D modeler. I'm not a coder or a game developer. And so this sort of functionality, I never thought I'd be able to implement myself. And here I am using ChatGPT and Google Gemini to get these things done. So I'm just so excited about the potential for what I might be able to do in the future. And if you guys have any suggestions for creating additional interactivity, just leave them in the comments. So, okay, so those are changes from last time. Now I think I haven't done huge things in here. This is pretty much unchanged, with one little exception. I did update this panel here. I found this slightly better photo of this panel, and I could actually read some of this writing, and so I replaced it to match what was in the TV show. I think I also changed maybe the lettering on these dials, and I think I may have changed something about this area here. Can't remember. It's quite a while ago since I did that. So that's about the only change here. And then in the corridor over here, I think, well, as usual, I've got the clocks that now tell you your current time, but also I've got this red alert flashing. So that's a new addition. The other thing that I changed in here is that used to be a blue E. It now is a yellow S. And in fact, if I go back to options and then screenshots, you can see here there's a red S. But at the different times, there's different things. And I got the blue E from something somewhere early on. And to be honest, I can't even find where I found that or why I decided that that was the appropriate thing to do. But anyway, I'm now following this thing. Now, there are other images, this one for instance, where it's slightly different, but you just have to pick one and go with it. So that's the corridor, and I think that's all the changes in the main mission set. So let's go to the diorama. So here we are in the diorama. The moon bug is pretty much unchanged, and this is all pretty much similar to before. Previously, I had all of the scanners and things sitting on here. There's no need to have them explicitly sitting here now because you can access them via the props library and just bring up your medical scanner if that's what you want, and do with it as you will, or turn it off. So let's just go back and just have a look at the options. So we have screenshots. Now this is an exciting addition because I didn't have this before, and it's really cool to see these images in the correct position to show the perspective of the different launch pads. Now, there were different types of launch pads. This launch pad for me was the prettiest, let's say. It had the sloping walls on the launch pad, whereas here you can see this launch pad has vertical walls on the outside. So again, I had to pick one launch pad and go with it. Now, the other thing that I've added to the launch pad is the grunge maps. That wasn't there before. And let me see if I can find an example where we can see the grunge maps. So again, I'm using the world grabbing technique. So on the bottom button on either hand, you just press and hold and move yourself around. So here, this is probably the definitive model of my launch pad here. So it has the sloping sides and the pattern on the orange elevator is the same in this photo and down there. And then here, this grunge map is where I got my grunge map from. Now, yeah, I didn't quite get all of the dirtiness of it like they have in the photo there, but I'm pretty closely follow, wherever there was that little square section there, you can see there, and then, all of those things, I sort of followed as much as I could. So we have these screenshots which show you how it all was in the TV show. And again, this is the sloping version, whereas over there we had the vertical wall version. Over there we have the gantry sticking out. And then as we go around, a few more screenshots. And here, in this screenshot, you can see how I've closely matched the window locations, those protruding panel shapes, what I've done there, and even these square things match, or my ones match the photo. And so that's the screenshots. I'm really pleased with how that turned out. So if I turn that off, and in fact I can turn off the, actually with the music, I have added some different soundtracks that I found. I don't know if you can hear that. It's a very funky 1970s sort of sound, and then that's even more 1970s. So, you can do whatever you want with the music, and then the slideshow. So there wasn't any natural place to put the slideshow, so I just had it floating up in space. And there's only the one. We've got our nebula up there, and we've got the rotating planets there. So if I just turn the slideshow off. At this point, I feel like I want to just explain a nerdy little aspect of collision meshes. So if I go to the props and then the library, and then I bring up the moon buggy. So you can see the difference here. This moon buggy is static. I can't pick it up. And so the lighting on that moon buggy is pre-calculated. Whereas this moon buggy is dynamic. And if I could just let go of it, and I can't. Let's bring it in a bit closer, and let's. Wow. It's really difficult using these capacitive grip controllers. But anyway, if you compare the lighting on the pre-baked lighting, the shadows look much more realistic, whereas there are just no shadows at all. It just doesn't look, and particularly in the wheel arches, there's darkness as you'd expect, but on this version there is no darkness. But anyway, so we've got the static and then the dynamic objects next to each other. But if I, let me just bring up maybe let's say this bowl here. So this is an example of the collision meshes. So on a static object, I can have a much more complex collision mesh. Technically, it's called a concave collision mesh. And so I can have all sorts of, oh, come on. If I try to drop, you can see the container collided with the controls, and it collides with the chair, and it collides with the seat back. It collides with everything. And so that's all as you'd expect. And that's on a static object. Now, oops. Oh, no. Now, this is not a static object. And so objects that are interactive and have to collide with other things, they can't have a concave collision mesh. They have to have a convex collision mesh. And what that means is that there can't be any dips or any caves, pretty much, in the mesh. So basically, the collision mesh on this, even though you can't see it, it's kind of like a ball type thing. So if you drop something on this one, you can see it hits the collision mesh, because this dynamic object requires a much simpler collision mesh. And I didn't mean that. So let's just turn that off, and then turn it back on again. So yeah, that's just I think an interesting little side effect for how things are constructed in game engines. And so this little miniature version of the moon buggy has that simple collision mesh on it, so that when it falls, it bounces and does what it needs to do. Now, the reason that I've included this small moon buggy here is because this whole launchpad set is determined by the scale of this Eagle transporter here. So this is meant to be the 44-inch Eagle that was used in the filming of the TV show. So this is the literal size of the Eagle that was modeled, the 44-inch Eagle. Now, they did have half-size models, so 22-inch, and I think they even had 11-inch models, and maybe even smaller than that. But this is the full 44-inch, 1.1 something meters long. So this set the scale of everything. So then the launchpad is scaled to be the correct size relative to the Eagle. And because the launchpad is the right size, that moon buggy is the right size relative to the scale of the Eagle. And then also the diorama scenes over there, they are the right scale relative to the size of the Eagle. So in other words, these are all human scales, if humans were scaled down to the scale of the Eagle. This scene, again, that stuff's there. Yeah, you can interact with all of those things there, and then if I go back to props, and I can go respawn, everything comes back. Now, there was a bug in the previous version of this project, and it continues in this version, and that is these diorama scenes. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 of them. There is a tendency, and in fact, let me just show you. So if we go to no, it is props actually. You can see the diorama sets. So there's the main mission, moon base corridors, passenger pod, and X5 computer pod. If I click on the corridors, there is no corridor, and that's the bug. And if I click on passenger pod, no, nothing. And if I click on the X5 computer pod, nothing. But if I go back to main mission, there it is. And so I can pick that up and drop it and do whatever I want. And then I can respawn, and it respawns. But those other scenes are just gone forever, and I don't know why the old version did it, and I don't know why this version does it, but it's something is strange. And so the way to fix it is one of the first things that you should do when you enter this scene is to simply activate all 4 dioramas. So to do that, let's just reload this scene. So if we go to locations and then click on this, so we will reload it. Here we are, it's reloaded. And now if I go to props and then I go to corridors, there's the corridor finally. And if I go to passenger pod, there's the passenger pod, and we can go and have a look at it. And then I can go to the X5 computer, and then there's that. And so this is the one with the cockpit, and I know everybody would like me to finish this cockpit, and now that I have upgraded to the latest version of Unity, this is the very first thing I'm going to work on next. But I haven't added much to the cockpit since last time. So, okay, so that is everything that I need to say about this scene. And I think I mentioned, yeah, I did mention the slideshow. It's a pretty image. Let's have a look at some more scenes. So this is the passenger pod. So with this passenger pod, we have a whole lot of props in here which we cannot pick up. I can't pick that up because I chose to do those as static so that we get more believable shadows. So all the props that you see in here that are preloaded are all static. I cannot pick them up, and I want that way because it has much better shadows. So all of these are static and you can't pick them up. Yeah, you can't pick any of this up. But what you can do is go to the props library and activate a whole bunch of things. Now, before we do go to the props library, oh no, look at this. There's a bug. Okay, I will fix this door before I upload the project. But just try to ignore that for now. This is not the door that you are looking for. Now, what I wanted to point out was that in this environment, this is another example where furniture gets really tight and it becomes difficult to navigate. So what I've done is I've made this furniture so that the character can just walk straight through it. And you can walk through this chair as well, but you can't walk through that. So you just bounce off that. And if I try to enter it from this side, you can't. But what you can do is, go to the props, go to the library, and let's activate the moon buggy. So this time I made the moon buggy 1/4 scale. So you can do stuff with it, and it will collide with the chairs, as you can see, and it will collide with the permanent colliders, as you can see, and it will even collide with, if I, let's say, bring up the moon, it will even collide with that. If I could let go with my right hand, but I can't, you can see the physics kicks in, it all works. So, yeah, you can walk through these things because it's just so much easier to navigate if you do. Actually, let's go back to options and just turn off the music. There's no real changes in here. You know, if you drop stuff, it collides with it. No real changes in here. I've already spoken about the clock and the red alert. So that's that. And I just pushed the thing through the floor. So the way to fix that would be to simply turn it off and on again, if that's what you want to do. Okay, I'll mention one other thing about the colliders in this space. These doors are not terribly high. And in fact, Martin Landau, you see in the TV show, Martin Landau has to crouch to walk through them. And I'm quite tall, 193 centimeters, I think I am. And so I have to kind of crouch through those doors as well. If I don't crouch, you'll see the character collider will sort of bounce across that threshold there because it's kind of raised, and then my head will kind of hit the top, and there'll be you'll sort of see through the geometry as I do it. So I'll try to walk through, and you can see there was kind of that little glitchiness because I'm sort of too tall for the door, and I didn't crouch. But if I do crouch, and you just saw me crouch there, I can go through the door quite easily. So for the less tall people amongst you, you won't even notice that issue, but for the tall people amongst you, you're going to have to crouch, or you'll just have to live with this glitch as you go through the door. Okay, so here, in fact, you can see here the slideshow has been turned on. So if I turn off the slideshow, this is what we had previously. So we had a little video playing on the screen projector there, but we can superimpose the slideshows. So it's the same slideshow as you saw in the main mission. Again, each one of them is offset by 50% from the other, and they just sort of cycle through the 100 slides that I've got. So that's the slideshow. The screenshots haven't changed at all from last time. It's all the same as before. The music, you can pick and choose what you want. Now here we've got the light diffusers, white, green, and so on. So if I click on green, let's say, nothing's changed. But if we look into the corridor, you can see the corridor has changed. So the corridor is now orange and nothing's changed. And if I go to blue, the corridor has gone to white. But the blue now refers to this airlock. And I really like this blue color. And likewise, we can change this airlock to red. And if we look out into the corridor, it's still got the white panels. So the white, green, and orange refers to, well, the white refers to both. The green and orange refers just to the corridor, and the blue and the red refers just to the airlock. So that's the options, that's the props. We can change gravity, the locations, we can go to a different location, and then the credits, just a brief spiel about what this passenger pod is all about, and this travel tube and so on. And so if we go back to locations, let's go to the X5 computer pod. There's some nice little surprises in here as well. So all of this stuff is pretty much as it was before. And if we look behind us, we've got the containers as they were before. You know, we can, again, I can go to props, I can go to library, and I can bring up the moon buggy, and you know, the moon buggy will collide with various things. But for the sake of ease of locomotion, I've made it so that, oh no, these ones, okay. I could have, right, I didn't. I collide with these things, and normally I try to make it so that I don't collide. I might just leave it as it is, actually. So in this storage area, you can't, well, considering these boxes are so high, I might just leave it so that you can't walk into them. Okay, so we can't go out that door. Now, as we approach the cockpit, which I haven't completed, but nevertheless, let's have a look at the cockpit. All of this is the same as before. And we can catch a glimpse outside the window in the cockpit. And as we get close enough, we can hear the eagle outside. Even though it's space, I know sound doesn't travel through space. I have, just for the sake of presence, I guess, I've added the sound. So when the eagle comes close to us, we can hear the engines, and when it moves a little bit further away, we can't. So the idea with the eagle outside the window is that we are two eagles, that one and the one that we are currently in, and we're traveling towards the planets to go on our mission. And as the eagles fly through space, they're not perfectly synchronized, with their velocity, and so one eagle will pull ahead and then the other one, and then they'll drift across, and then they'll swap positions and all sorts of things. So that's kind of the idea that I've tried to do there. So that eagle is on a 1 minute animation loop where it just sort of rocks backwards and forwards and comes closer and further away, and when it comes closer you can hear the sound more clearly, and then when it moves further away it's less obvious. So down here we have, again, the unfinished pilot's seats. Now, if I move down there, I can walk through the pilot seats. But trying to get back up onto that platform is a little bit more difficult now. It won't do it. It's the step from the bottom of the floor to that top bit is too high. So we have two choices. We can either teleport back up, or if I just drop back down again, we can teleport back up there, or we can do the world grabbing thing where I can grab the world, move myself up across, and then just let myself fall back down again. So that's that. Now, if I go back and I turn on the screenshots, if you remember all these screenshots, same as before, all over the place. But I do have a few screenshots that are outside of the cabin looking in. So what I've done there is, if you stand close enough to the wall, and then we're going to teleport outside. So I've just teleported outside, and in fact, let me just teleport back inside. I'm pretty sure that I can probably just physically walk through the wall, and here I am now outside. So if I just move around, here I am. So the extent that I can walk is not infinite. In fact, it's only like 10 meters. But the idea, but I've put a collision mesh out here which you can stand on and walk around and inspect these screenshots that are outside. So here we are outside, and then if I go there to look at that, and so by being outside, you sort of get to see the guts of how these projects are put together. But I thought it was worth being able to come outside to just look at these screenshots. Now, it's unfortunate that this shadow caster is in the way. For now, I think I'm just going to leave it like that. And then there's a screenshot over here as well. This one there. And okay. Now, let me just teleport back outside again. So you can see here, if I teleport, you can see the extent of the teleportation. So basically, at some point, you're hitting the floor, and then I've got a 1 meter high collider to stop us from accidentally just sliding off the edge. So there's a invisible 1 meter high wall, and then that wall disappears, and then there's just impossible to teleport. So basically, there's this 10 by 10 meter platform here. Now, I forgot to mention this previously, but if I go back to the diorama scene, I've done the same with the diorama. Oh, my controller, and I'll just hit the wall. My controller, for some reason, doesn't want to pick up. The grip is just not working. Okay, so theoretically, you can walk off the edge, but the same thing happens. I've got a 1 meter high invisible wall there, which stops me from falling off the edge. So if you throw things, it will hit them and it will look unnatural because it hit an invisible wall. But if you throw things a little bit higher, this is really difficult. So that's a little bit higher and it goes off and falls right off the edge. So props, respawn, there it is. So I've got that invisible wall around this platform as well, just so you know. Location. So that's all I wanted to say about this scene. I kind of like how that turned out. Okay, let's go and look at the Rescue Eagle launchpad. So this launchpad is pretty much the same as it was previously. Obviously the planet is now spherical and bigger with a complete texture that goes all the way around. Mostly things are the same in here. I did do a few changes and a few things that behave differently in Unity 2023. So here we have, in fact, if I just teleport over to this side, we've got the main engine. So if I click on main engines, you can see that fires up just like it used to. One of the differences with Unity 2023, and I don't know why it's behaving differently. I really need to look into this. But previously, when you turn off the engines, the gas would just sort of elegantly peter out, whereas now when you turn off the main engine, it just instantaneously disappears, which is a little bit unrealistic, as I talk about an unrealistic science fiction show. So that's different. And then with the ventral coolant, it just instantly turns off, but then when you turn it on, it slowly starts to come out, as you can see there. The thing that I did differently is these vernier jets. Previously, they would all four of them would turn on and they would just be on constantly. What I did now is I've added a randomization to the firing of those verniers. So once you activate the verniers there, they then just randomly fire, which is kind of nice. Okay, so let's turn the music off. The slideshow on this launchpad. Again, it's the same repeat of that slideshow. I probably didn't have to put it on here, but I just thought it'd be nice. So I put the slideshow up there. Very dirty moon buggy. And if we teleport ourselves up to here, we can stand and look at the slideshow above the launchpad. Okay, now let's have a look at the final scene, which is the VIP launchpad. Again, very similar. There are some differences to the previous version of Unity, mainly because the scripts that I was using on that previous version handled this moving platform much more elegantly than the physics engine in the new Unity does. A character controller, which is what's controlling this VR thing now as I move forwards and backwards, it works fine on static ground, but there was a problem as soon as you move to a moving platform. There's the issue of the physics that drives the character controller not being able to keep up with the motion of the platform. Now, I did manage to make it work by using a parent-child relationship. So I've attached my character controller as a child of the elevator parent, and so as the elevator goes up and down, I go up and down with it, and it's not, the physics doesn't glitch out. Before I did that, what would happen is the elevator would go down and I would find myself just not going down until about a meter, until the elevator was a meter away, and then I would all of a sudden fall. And then I'd stop and then the elevator would continue down, and then I would still stay in midair, and then I would fall. that was not good, but even worse was when the elevator was going up. There, the character would constantly be hitting the physics of the elevator going up, and it would just jerk. And so as the elevator was going up, your character would be just doing this, and it was kind of sickening, actually. Now, there are ways, I don't know, I can't do it consistently, but there are times when, like if you run into the side wall, or I don't know what it is, but certain things will trigger the character not to behave as a child of the elevator parent, and then it starts shaking again. So the solution for that is pretty much to just teleport onto a flat surface that isn't moving, and then teleport back, and then things should be good again. This whole problem with the physics of moving platforms has also meant that all of those containers, previously I had them sitting on this platform that was going up and down, the elevator, and they were fine, they were rock solid. In this version where the physics clashes with the objects and they shake, if I had those sitting on the, you can see now this is the bug. So as the elevator goes down, I'm not keeping up with it. You can see I'm kind of bouncing, and then just wait until it starts going back up again. But anyway, so those containers I've had to put onto a static surface, and then from there you can throw them down onto this elevator, but they just don't behave elegantly if you have them sitting on the elevator constantly. So here you can see the jerkiness that I was talking about. And so the solution is to teleport onto a flat surface and then teleport back. And so now everything is smooth again. If somebody is a Unity developer and can suggest something to me, I would welcome the insight. Okay, so that is everything. So here, this is an example of the moon buggy. It's a static moon buggy, and I can walk right through it because otherwise I wouldn't be able to get close enough to be able to then come inside and inspect some of the detail. And that is the latest version of the project. Now that I have updated to Unity 2023, I am in a really good position to do further updates, and I'm quite excited about finishing the cockpit. So hopefully you will all see that relatively soon. Till next time, bye.